Hi, I'm Sophie,
And I'm Lindsey.
and for our theory application assignment, we're going to be focusing on the sociocultural theory
And the exchange theory.
First, we're going to be talking about the sociocultural theory. The sociocultural theory was developed by Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky in 1978, and it describes learning as a social process and origination of human intelligence in society or culture. There are three main aspects to the sociocultural theory. The first is scaffolding. Scaffolding is guiding learners with the help of someone who is more knowledgeable. This can be a teacher or a peer. Scaffolding helps learners achieve goals that they could not achieve on their own. Methods include cooperative learning, hands-on activities, visuals, and instructor modeling. The second aspect is the zone of proximal development. There are two levels of development. Actual development, which is the capabilities that have been previously developed, for example, a child's capacity for problem solving on their own, and prospective development, which is the abilities that have not yet formed completely but are in the process of growing. For example, tasks that the child can only perform when assisted. The zone of proximal development represents the space between these two types of development, what someone can do on their own and what they need help with. The third aspect of the sociocultural theory is social interaction. This is the idea that human development relies on social interaction. Let's look at an example of how the sociocultural theory can be used in the classroom. This teacher is introducing fractions to a child who is in their early childhood state. The teacher could just write the fraction 3/4 on the board and really explain what it means. However, this may be confusing for the child since they have no concept of fractions yet. The child might feel frustrated as they are not able to understand just by looking at the numbers. So the teacher decides that it would be more effective to visually show how fractions work. The teacher draws a pie on the board and then cuts the pie into 4 slices. She then takes one slice away and explains to the student that this pie represents the fraction 3/4, because out of the 4 total slices, only 3 of them remain. Now, with the help of the teacher, the child is able to mentally picture the fraction 3/4 using the pie visual, therefore helping the child to better understand fractions. Now let's look at how scaffolding, the zone of proximal development, and social interaction are seen in this example. First, let's look at how scaffolding is seen. The teacher used visual aid to help explain a concept that a student was unfamiliar with. The child was not familiar with how fractions work or what 3/4 meant, so putting an image to a concept really helped the child visualize. The teacher helped the student gain an understanding that the student otherwise would not have been able to reach on their own. Next, let's look at how the zone of proximal development is seen in this example. While a child is able to picture a pie in their mind on their own, they cannot yet figure out how it relates to fractions without help. This is because simple fractions fall within the child's zone of proximal development. They cannot yet do them on their own, at least they couldn't before this lesson, but they can successfully learn them with help. Lastly, let's look at how social interaction can be seen in this example. The child needed help, meaning they needed to interact socially in order to understand the math. Without the help from those around him, the child would have been completely lost, and it probably would have taken them a lot longer to grasp the concept of fractions.
The next theory we will be talking about is the exchange theory. This theory was created by an American sociologist named George Homans. In 1958, Homans published an article with the name Social Behavior as Exchange that proposed the foundations for a theory that had a basis in both behaviorism and economics. The basic pretense of this theory focuses around the decision-making process an individual goes through when deciding the worth of a relationship, either romantically or as a friendship. This is done by evaluating the balance of rewards and costs of a relationship, otherwise known as pros and cons. A few examples of rewards include companionship, being cared for, or other elements of a relationship that add a positive value for a person. Costs, on the other hand, are any element that is thought of as a negative element in one's relationship, such as effort needed, time wasted, financial investment, etc. The exchange theory, however, does have a few limitations. The positivity of certain rewards and the negativity of costs is a subjective opinion to each individual in the context of their relationship. It's similar to the idea of one man's trash being another man's treasure. Another limitation of this theory is the lack of realization a person has of the profitability of a relationship in the present moment. An individual may not be aware of the worth or lack thereof of a relationship until they reflect on the behaviors at a later time. Now let's look into the application of this theory through a conversation of two friends. Hey, how have you been? We haven't hung out in a while.
Fine.
Why does she always seem annoyed to see me?
I've got to go. I have other plans.
That was a little mean and didn't make me feel good. She's been doing that a lot recently. A few hours later.
Hey, Amy, why do you look upset?
I had a discouraging interaction with Jane earlier. She clearly didn't want to talk to me.
That's been happening a lot recently. If it's upsetting you, if it's upsetting you, then maybe you should take some space from that friendship.
You're right. I'll think about the pros and cons before I decide on anything. Now let's look into how this scene shows the different aspects of the exchange theory. Firstly, Amy needs to weigh the rewards and costs of the friendship. Next, if Amy decides the cost of Jane's poor attitude outweighs any benefits the relationship gives, then Amy should consider distancing herself and possibly leaving the friendship. This shows the rewards minus the cost equaling the outcome of the relationship. Finally, the limitations should be thought of during this interaction. Jane's behavior offended Amy and made her feel bad about herself, so Amy saw it as a cost. Other people, however, may not mind being friends with someone who is a little more distant. In conclusion, this scene shows a little bit of the decisions people make in relationships to measure rewards and balance in order to maximize a positive outcome. Overall, the exchange theory focuses on how and why people balance certain rewards and costs in a relationship.
And the sociocultural theory focuses on the role that interactions with others and mediation have in guiding learners through development.
Just remember, if you ever are in a relationship where you feel the costs outweigh the rewards, it may be best to remove yourself.
And if you're ever trying to teach someone a tricky concept, remember that you can always use scaffolding.
Thank you for watching!